Vanessa Park didn't tell anyone she was going hiking. She didn't tell her roommate. She didn't tell her sister. She didn't even leave a note. She just packed her backpack, laced up her boots, and drove 2 hours north to Mount Rainier. She needed to be alone. The breakup had happened 3 days ago. Tyler had ended it over text, after 2 years. A text message. "I don't think this is working anymore. I need space to figure things out. I'm sorry." That was it. No explanation, no conversation. Just 23 words that ripped her life apart. Vanessa had spent the first day crying, the second day numb, and by the third day she was angry, furious, at Tyler, at herself, at the universe for letting her believe that someone could actually stay. She'd taken the day off work and driven to the mountain. She chose the Skyline Trail, a 6-mile loop that climbed through wildflower meadows and alpine ridges. It was late August, and the weather forecast had been clear. Blue skies, mild temperatures, perfect hiking conditions. She started the trail at 9 in the morning. The parking lot was half full, a few families, some older couples, a group of college kids taking selfies near the trailhead sign. Vanessa pulled her hood up and walked past them without making eye contact. The first 2 miles were easy, gentle switchbacks through forest, the smell of pine and earth, the sound of her boots crunching on gravel. She focused on her breathing, on the rhythm of her steps, on anything other than the hollow ache in her chest. By the time she reached the meadows, the sun was higher, warm on her face. The wildflowers were in full bloom, lupines, paintbrush, avalanche lilies spreading across the slopes in waves of purple, red, and white. Normally, she would have stopped to take pictures, but today, she barely looked at them. She kept walking. The trail climbed higher, breaking out of the trees and onto exposed ridgeline. To her left, Mount Rainier rose massive and white against the sky. To her right, valleys dropped away into shadow. The wind picked up, cooler now, tugging at her jacket. Vanessa checked her phone. No signal. She pocketed it and kept going. She reached Panorama Point just after 11. The viewpoint offered sweeping views of the mountain, the glaciers, the surrounding peaks. A wooden bench sat near the edge. Vanessa dropped her backpack and sat down. She stared at the mountain. At the sheer size of it, the permanence. It had been here for thousands of years. It would be here long after she was gone, long after Tyler was gone, long after any of this mattered. The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it just made her feel small. "Why did I believe him?" she whispered to no one. The wind was the only answer. She pulled out her water bottle and took a long drink. She should eat something. She had a sandwich in her pack, but she wasn't hungry. She hadn't been hungry in days. She sat there for 20 minutes, watching clouds begin to gather over the western peaks. They were dark, dense, moving faster than they should. Vanessa frowned. The forecast hadn't mentioned clouds. She stood, slinging her backpack over her shoulders. She should head back. She still had 4 miles to go. But as she turned toward the trail, she stopped. A woman was sitting on a rock about 50 feet away. She hadn't been there before. Vanessa was sure of it. The woman looked maybe 60, with gray hair pulled back in a loose bun. She wore hiking pants and a faded blue windbreaker. She was staring at the mountain the same way Vanessa had been. "Beautiful, isn't it?" the woman called out. Vanessa hesitated. She didn't want to talk, but ignoring someone felt rude. "Yeah, it is. First time up here?" "No, I've done this trail a few times." The woman smiled. "Me too. I try to come up at least once a summer. Helps me remember what matters." Vanessa didn't respond. She adjusted her pack straps. The woman tilted her head, studying her. "You look like you're carrying something heavy." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "I'm fine." "I didn't say you weren't." The woman's tone was gentle, not pushy. "I just said you look like you're carrying something." Vanessa looked away. "It's nothing, just life." Life can be heavy. Yeah. The woman stood, brushing dust from her pants. Can I give you some advice? I don't really. Whatever it is you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone. Vanessa forced a smile. Thanks. I'll keep that in mind. The woman looked at her for a moment longer, then nodded. Be careful out there. Storm's coming. Vanessa glanced at the sky. The clouds were thicker now, darker, spreading across the peaks like ink in water. I will. She started down the trail, away from Panorama Point, back toward the forest. She didn't look back at the woman. By the time she reached the meadows again, the wind had picked up significantly. The wildflowers bent and swayed. The temperature had dropped at least 10 degrees. Vanessa zipped her jacket up to her chin and quickened her pace. Thunder rumbled in the distance. She stopped looking up. The sky had turned an ugly gray-green, the kind of color that meant serious weather. Lightning flickered inside the clouds, silent, too far away to hear. She should have turned back sooner. Vanessa broke into a jog, her boots pounding the trail. The forest was still a mile away. Once she reached the trees, she'd be safer. Lightning didn't strike as often under cover. The first raindrops hit her face, cold, heavy. Within seconds it was pouring. The trail turned slick, muddy. Vanessa slipped, caught herself, kept moving. Thunder cracked overhead loud enough to make her flinch. She was completely exposed. No trees, no shelter. Just open meadow and ridgeline. Come on, she muttered, pushing herself harder. And then the lightning came. A bolt struck the ridge behind her, so bright it turned the world white. The thunder followed instantly, a sound so loud it felt like the earth had split open. Vanessa screamed and dropped to her knees, covering her head with her arms. Another bolt, this one closer. She could smell it, sharp, metallic, like burning wire. She scrambled to her feet and ran, not toward the forest. There wasn't time. She ran toward a cluster of boulders about 30 yards off the trail. If she could get low, if she could make herself small, maybe she'd be okay. She reached the rocks and pressed herself against the largest one, curling into a ball. The rain was coming down in sheets now, soaking through her jacket, her pants, her boots. She was shaking, not from the cold, from fear. Lightning struck again and again. The bolts were coming faster now, hitting the ridge, the meadow, the peaks. The air hummed with electricity. Vanessa's hair stood on end. Her skin prickled. She was going to die. The thought was clear, certain. She was going to die alone on a mountain because she'd been too stupid to check the weather, too stubborn to turn back, too broken to care. Tears mixed with rain on her face. I don't want to die, she whispered. Please, I don't want to die. She didn't know who she was talking to. She hadn't prayed in years, not since her mom died, not since she'd sat in a hospital room and begged God to save her, and God hadn't. But right now, with lightning tearing the sky apart around her, she prayed anyway. Please, if you're real, if you're there, please help me. I'm sorry I stopped believing. I'm sorry I gave up. Just please, please don't let me die like this. The lightning struck so close she felt the heat. The bolt hit the ground maybe 20 feet from where she crouched. The thunder was instantaneous, deafening. Vanessa screamed, pressing herself harder against the rock, and then she saw it. The next bolt was forming. High in the clouds, a jagged streak of light gathering, building, preparing to strike, and it was aimed directly at her. She could feel it, the pull, the charge in the air. Her body was a conductor. The lightning was coming for her. She closed her eyes and braced for the impact, but it never came. Instead, she felt warmth, not burning, not pain. Just warmth, spreading through her chest, her arms, her legs, a presence solid, real. She opened her eyes. A man was standing between her and the sky. Alias, before we continue, comment where you're listening to this story from. He stood maybe 10 feet in front of her, his back to her, his arms raised toward the storm. He wore jeans and a dark jacket, his hair wet from the rain, but he wasn't crouching. He wasn't hiding. He was standing tall, facing the lightning head-on. "Who?" Vanessa's voice came out as a croak. The man didn't turn. He spoke, his voice calm, clear, cutting through the thunder. "Not her." The lightning bolt that had been forming, that had been seconds away from striking, changed direction. It didn't dissipate, it didn't fade, it bent. The bolt curved in midair, arcing away from Vanessa, away from the man, and struck the ridge 100 yards to the east. The impact sent rock and debris exploding into the air. Vanessa stared, her mouth open, unable to breathe. The man lowered his arms and turned to face her. His face was kind, calm, not surprised, not afraid. He looked at her the way you'd look at someone you'd been expecting. "You're safe," he said. Vanessa's mind was screaming. Nothing about this made sense. "Who are you?" "You know who I am." Her chest tightened. "That's not possible. You just watched lightning bend in midair." "What part of possible are you still holding on to?" Vanessa pushed herself up, her back still pressed against the rock. "You're not... You can't be..." The man stepped closer, and she saw his eyes. Dark, deep, filled with something she couldn't name. Compassion, love, recognition. "Jesus," she whispered. He smiled. "Yes." Her knees gave out. She slid back down, her hands shaking. "This isn't real. I'm hallucinating. I got struck by lightning and I'm dying and..." "You're not dying." Jesus knelt down, bringing himself to her level. "And you're not hallucinating. I'm here, and so are you. But why? Why are you here?" "Because you asked me to be." "I didn't..." She stopped. She had. She'd prayed. For the first time in 8 years, she'd prayed. "But I don't deserve this. I stopped believing in you. I gave up. I've done things I'm not proud of. I've been angry at you for years. Why would you help me?" Jesus sat down on the ground, rain pouring over both of them. He didn't seem bothered by it. "Why do you think you have to deserve it?" "Because that's how it works. You only help people who believe, people who are good, people who..." "Vanessa." His voice was gentle but firm. "That's not how I work." She stared at him, tears streaming. "Then how? How does it work?" "I love you. That's how it works. I loved you before you prayed. I loved you when you stopped believing. I loved you when you were angry at me. I love you now. That doesn't change based on what you do or don't do. That doesn't make sense. Love rarely does." Another bolt of lightning struck, farther away now. Jesus glanced up at it, then back at her. "The storm's not over yet, but you're safe. I'm not letting anything happen to you." Vanessa's voice cracked. "Why didn't you save my mom?" Jesus's expression shifted, not to defensiveness, to sorrow. "I know. She prayed. She asked you to heal her. We all prayed, and you didn't do anything. You let her die. I was there, Vanessa, every moment. I held her hand when you couldn't. I whispered to her when she was afraid. I carried her home when it was time. Then why didn't you heal her? Why didn't you stop it?" "Because some battles aren't meant to be fought in this life. Sometimes healing looks different than we expect." "That's not good enough." Vanessa's voice rose raw and broken. "She was good. She believed in you. She trusted you, and you let her suffer. You let her die. And you expect me to just accept that?" Jesus didn't flinch. He just let her rage, her pain pour out. "I hate you," she sobbed. "I've hated you for 8 years. I've hated you every time I see someone else's mom alive, every time I hear someone talk about prayers being answered, because mine weren't. Mine were ignored." "They weren't ignored," Jesus said quietly. "I heard every single one, and I answered. By letting her die? By letting her live forever." His voice was soft. She's not gone, Vanessa. She's with me. And she's waiting for you. Vanessa's breath hitched. Don't say that. It's true. She's proud of you. She knows you've been hurting. She knows you've been angry. And she understands. She doesn't blame you. How do you know? Because I've talked to her. Jesus reached out and placed a hand on Vanessa's shoulder. She asked me to tell you something. She said, "Tell my girl that I'm okay. Tell her that it doesn't hurt anymore. Tell her to stop carrying my death and start carrying my love." Vanessa broke, completely, utterly broke. She collapsed against him, sobbing into his shoulder, and he wrapped his arms around her and held her. He didn't tell her to stop crying. He didn't tell her to be strong. He just held her. They sat there in the rain for a long time. The storm continued around them, but the lightning never came close again. It was like an invisible shield surrounded them, pushing the danger away. Finally, Vanessa pulled back, wiping her face. "I don't know how to stop being angry." "You don't have to stop all at once," Jesus said. "You just have to start letting me help you carry it." "I don't know if I can trust you." "I know, but you can try." She looked at him, this impossible man sitting in the mud with her, rain dripping from his hair. "What about Tyler?" Jesus tilted his head. "What about him?" "He left me, just like everyone else. He made a choice, a painful one. But it doesn't define you. Then what does?" "This," Jesus gestured around them. "You, right here, right now. You prayed even though you didn't think I'd answer. You chose to keep living even though it hurt. That defines you. I didn't think you'd answer." "But I did." Vanessa let out a shaky breath. "What happens now?" Jesus stood, offering her his hand. "Now, I get you off this mountain." She took his hand and he pulled her to her feet. She looked around. The storm was still raging, lightning still flashing in the distance. "How? We're still in the middle of it." "Watch!" Jesus turned toward the sky and raised his right hand. He spoke, his voice carrying over the thunder. "Enough!" The lightning stopped, not gradually, instantly. The bolts that had been forming in the clouds dissipated. The thunder faded. The wind died down. Within seconds, the rain slowed to a drizzle, and then it stopped entirely. The clouds began to break apart, sunlight streaming through the gaps. Vanessa stared, her mouth open. "How did you—" "I told you. Nothing is impossible for me." He started walking toward the trail. Vanessa grabbed her backpack and followed, her legs unsteady. As they walked, the sky continued to clear. By the time they reached the forest, the sun was shining, the meadows glistening with rain. Steam rose from the rocks. Birds began to sing. Vanessa kept glancing at Jesus, half expecting him to disappear, but he stayed beside her, walking at an easy pace, his hands in his pockets. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." "Are you always this calm?" He smiled. "I've had a lot of practice. But don't you get angry at people who hurt each other, at people who do terrible things?" "Yes, I get angry. But anger isn't the opposite of love. Indifference is. And I'm never indifferent." They walked in silence for a while. Then Vanessa spoke again. "What do I do now, when you're gone?" "I'm not going to be gone. You know what I mean." Jesus stopped walking and turned to face her. "Vanessa, I've been with you every day for the last 8 years. I was with you when you sat in your mom's hospital room. I was with you when you graduated college. I was with you when Tyler broke your heart. I've never left. You just stopped looking for me. So you'll still be there? Even if I can't see you?" "Especially then." She looked down at her boots, muddy and soaked. "I don't know how to start over." "You don't have to start over. You just have to start." "How?" "One step at a time. One prayer. One moment of choosing to trust me instead of your fear. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real." Vanessa nodded slowly. "Okay." Jesus reached out and cupped her face gently, looking into her eyes. You're stronger than you think, braver than you know, and more loved than you can imagine. Don't forget that. I'll try. That's all I ask." He dropped his hand and stepped back. "The parking lot's just ahead. You're safe now." Vanessa looked down the trail. She could see the clearing, the cars. When she turned back, Jesus was gone. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where he'd been. Then she took a breath and started walking. When she reached the parking lot, a park ranger was standing near her car. He looked relieved when he saw her. "Ma'am, are you okay? We've been trying to reach hikers. That storm came out of nowhere. Lightning struck the ridge multiple times. We're lucky no one was hurt." Vanessa looked back toward the mountain, toward the meadows and ridges now bathed in golden afternoon light. "Yeah," she said quietly. "Lucky." The ranger gave her a bottle of water and a safety pamphlet. She thanked him, got in her car, and drove home. That night she called her sister. They talked for 2 hours. Vanessa told her about the hike, about the storm, about the lightning. She didn't tell her about Jesus, not yet, but she would, eventually. 3 weeks later, Vanessa started going to a small church near her apartment. She sat in the back. She didn't talk to anyone. She just listened. And slowly, week by week, the anger began to soften. She started journaling. She wrote letters to her mom. She wrote about Tyler. She wrote about the mountain, the storm, the lightning that bent in midair. And every time she wrote, she ended with the same words: "Thank you for not giving up on me." 6 months later, Vanessa went back to Mount Rainier. She hiked the Skyline Trail again, this time with her sister. The weather was clear, no storms. When they reached Panorama Point, Vanessa walked to the edge and looked out at the mountain. Her sister stood beside her. "You okay?" Vanessa smiled. "Yeah, I'm okay." "You sure? You've been quiet." "I'm just remembering." "Remembering what?" Vanessa looked at her sister. "The day I stopped falling and started being caught." Her sister didn't understand, but that was okay. Vanessa did. Years later, a meteorologist named Dr. Sarah Chen published a paper analyzing lightning patterns on Mount Rainier during the storm on August 23rd. She noted an unusual phenomenon captured by weather satellites, a single lightning bolt that appeared to change trajectory mid-strike, bending at an angle that defied standard atmospheric physics. Dr. Chen concluded her paper with a note: "Further study required to understand the mechanisms behind this anomaly." No further study was ever conducted, but Vanessa kept the paper. She had it framed in her office. And sometimes, when life got hard, when the storms came back, she'd look at that paper and remember. God redirected lightning for her. And if he could do that, he could handle whatever else she was facing. She wasn't alone. She never had been. And neither are you. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who's in the middle of their own storm, someone who thinks they're alone, someone who's stopped praying because they think no one's listening. Because God is still redirecting lightning, and he's still catching people when they fall.